Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for October 25th, 2011. I'm Joe Lynch. Tonight my guest makes his second appearance on the show. He is a former candidate for mayor and alderman at large and is now seeking the open Ward 4 alderman seat on the Board of Aldermen. A longtime resident and business owner here in the city, it is my pleasure to welcome back to Greater Somerville Tony Lafuente, candidate for Ward 4 alderman. Welcome back to the hot seat.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
nice to be back.
We didn't scare you away the first time.
No, we had a very interesting conversation with you then, and we're glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
There you go. And you know, I was corrected. I have to correct this every time I say something about Ward 4. I say the open seat. Mm-hmm. It's not open yet. Alderman Perro is still the alderman from Ward 4, but he is decided to step down. He is not going to seek re-election, and that is what I mean by open seat.
Right.
So,
and you know, if I may,
sure.
With your permission, I want to thank Alderman Perro for all his years of service to the city, not only as an elected official, but also as an appointed, and during the many things that he's done in the city. He's been an important and integral part of the city for many years. So I personally would like to thank him for all the work and everything that he's done while he has been involved. And I'm sure he's not going to totally go away. I'm sure that he'll continue to be involved. So, but I do want to personally thank him for all his service.
And for, from my standpoint too, Alderman Perro being a veteran, and I believe he's the only veteran on the board, and myself being a veteran, I've always admired the amount of work that he's done for the veteran community over the years, not only with the city of Somerville, but when he was involved in with the state as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's get back to Ward 4. Ward 4 is heating up. You've been campaigning for 6 months now? 7 months?
Yes, yep. About 6 months now. We started in May, and we're actually April, and it's been nonstop. A lot of door knocking and meeting people, and it's been a wonderful time, and reconnecting with folks. Certainly from when the kids were in school. You're meeting parents that you haven't seen, you don't really see on a regular basis,
sure.
and friends, and so it's been really great to reconnect with neighbors.
Yep. You did campaigning across the city twice. So Ward 4, you're no stranger to the Ward 4 voters. They've seen, this is now about the 1000th time that they've seen Tony Lafuente at their door.
Yeah.
How you feeling? How you feeling about the election?
I feel good. The reception has been very good. This has been a very different race than previous races, Joe, because I do know a lot of these people, and they've been neighbors for a long time, and 27 years of being in a given place is a long time. So it's people welcome you into their homes, and you talk about experiences over the last 20 years or so, and especially a lot of folks talk about St. Anne's and when kids were there, and so it's been a wonderful time just going through it. Unlike the citywide races where you start on one end and you keep going across, but you don't have the connections, the friendships, and the history.
It's really more personal when you're talking to your neighbors about a campaign.
Yeah, much more personal.
Terrific. So the issues haven't gone away. We still have an empty grocery store up at Winter Hill, the site of the Old Star Market. And I did see your face at the great debate last week. You were down at the Somerville Theater, and that very issue came up.
Yes. When
the aldermen at large were debating, and there was an issue about the rezoning of Winter Hill, and how could we tolerate having that empty store.
Right.
And for the folks who know that Star Market site has been vacant for a while, it is a private piece of property.
Right.
The developer has now hit a snag with the city, as well as with a tenant that wanted to go in there.
Right.
But it was interesting that one of the candidates for at-large was talking about the need for a food-based operation in there.
Right.
So your thoughts, what are you hearing from the voters? Are you still hearing that?
Yeah, I think folks would like to have a grocery store of some sort there because it was convenient. So I think if in the end we end up with a grocery store, I think that the greatest percentage of the neighbors would like to see that happen. It's a matter of making that happen with,
Sure.
with the owner, because it is in private hands, and there's a process that you need to go by because it is in private hands and now being in court. But in listening to the neighbors, the grocery store is the first choice. So I think it would be, if he doesn't want to, or if he's not going to cooperate in doing a total redevelopment of the site, I think that would be the wonderful thing to do and work towards.
Right.
So that we accommodate the neighborhood.
And one of the things, Tony, too, that I was hearing is make sure that whatever goes in there is a shorter term lease than normal, because as you know, being in business, a lot of these enterprises want 15, 20, 25-year leases.
Which is, the unfortunate thing that's happened here. He signed a 20-year lease with a drugstore, which really does tie up the land for...
We're talking about, is it Osco or Rite Aid?
Rite Aid.
Rite Aid, over and back, yeah.
Yeah, because the owner owns that as well. Now, that's going to be tied up for 20 years.
Right.
So if we want to move that forward into a long-term vision for what happens in Winter Hill and Broadway, that Rite Aid is going to put a snag on it. So you have to have some sort of safeguards as to how he does it. But the unfortunate thing about having a landlord that is not cooperative is that they begin to play with what they can, thinking that they're going to put a snag in the city and the neighborhood. So, I think we've got our work cut out for us in negotiating with this owner. But I do believe that in the end, the neighborhood is going to benefit from it, because he's going to have to do something positive for the neighborhood.
Another large parcel that has come up in discussion about that whole Winter Hill rezoning is the old Cataldo funeral home. I know that nothing has been brought forward to the city at this point, but
No.
what are your thoughts and what are the voters thinking?
Right. Nothing. It's in private hands again. The family owns it. I have not seen any proposals come forth, so we don't really know what they're doing with it or what their intentions are. I'm sure that when it does come out, the city will find out. I'm sure the neighbors are all going to be, told about potential meetings and
due process.
The whole process of planning and zoning board of appeals and so on. But as of now, I have not heard that any proposals have been put forward. I know that in the back house, the pastor of the Protestant church on the corner of Central and Broadway, I believe he's living there now. So there is some activity, but I have not heard of any overall scheme for the entire lot.
And a potential for a third redevelopment site would be the site of the post office.
Yes.
If they decide to close that whole back lot then becomes in play.
Yeah. There was a proposal at one time for that. It didn't go anywhere. I'm sure the developer will come back with something more sensible. And frankly, I hope something does happen, because that part of Winter Hill, all of Winter Hill that belongs in Ward 4, really needs a sprucing up.
Yeah.
And it would be wonderful to have, sort of a mixed-use, multifaceted development where we do get some commercial and some residential, market-based, so that it brings up the retail portion of the city for the residents. We all talk about, we don't have a good coffee shop or a restaurant in Ward 4. It would be nice to have that happen.
Walk to places.
Exactly, and congregate with your neighbors and meeting places and so on. But, in a developable fashion rather than, a programmed.
And it's only a matter of time, Tony, I think, with the rezoning of Lower Broadway. I'm talking about everything east of McGrath Highway, and now we have the Winter Hill redevelopment. That's a natural extension.
Oh, absolutely.
That will happen no matter who owns the land. That redevelopment will happen over a period of years.
Right. And I believe that a ward alderman has a responsibility, and it has to have the commitment to make that happen in a much quicker time than if you would just allow it to happen by progression. I believe that being in business for as long as I have and being involved in those areas, of development, I'm in a position to make that happen, and to certainly make marriages between developers and business folks, whether it be startups or existing business, to come to Winter Hill. I think that it's a wonderful area to develop and have a vision, because you can really start from scratch.
Sure.
So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the city and for the ward.
Yep. Yep. The last time you were here, there were not on the table, and I'm going to jump right back to that issue of the supermarket. Not on the table the last time you were here was the proposal by Walmart to put a supermarket in down in Circuit City. And in fairness, Tony, I asked your opponent, would the folks in Winter Hill be receptive to a Walmart should Circuit City fall apart? Now, I know it's premature for me jumping ahead this way, because they haven't even got a proposal on the table in front of the mayor yet.
Right.
But if Walmart says, okay, you don't want us in Circuit City, how about the Old Star Market site? Has anyone talked to you about that within Ward 4?
No, that really hasn't come up. But I would say that, first of all, we don't know what's going to happen at the Circuit City site. I'm not so sure that I, as a resident, would be favorable to having a Walmart in Winter Hill, to be honest with you. I would prefer more regional, local produce supermarket type of store there for the residents. Ideally, something like the Mulas in Winter Hill would be great. Great price point. Folks seem to go to Somerville Avenue to get their groceries. It would be nice to have a smaller store. So that's certainly an option, and we've talked about that as I've gone door to door. So I'm not so sure personally that I would be in favor of having Walmart in Winter Hill.
But it's something that, once it gets out there in front of the city, once it gets out there in front of the residents, as a ward alderman, you'd have to, assuming that you're successful, you'd have to bring that forward.
Oh, absolutely, and the residents of the ward and the neighbors are going to have a big say in that.
Sure.
But I do believe that we can probably be successful at getting a more local market there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think everyone prefers.
I hate to say this, but Temple Street's off the Temple Street. The repaving of Temple Street is now off of the agenda, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it could have been done last year. The city decided not to do it because of the St. Polycarp construction, and which made sense. Why repave a street when you have to cut it back open, 8 or 9 months later?
Sure.
So, we were told back in the spring that it was going to happen in the fall. So it's not an issue. It should not have been an issue. It's just great that it's done.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, not being a resident of Ward 4, but being a frequent traveler across Temple Street. Whoever had their hand in that, and I think it was Algonquin Gas and St. Polycarp's and Joe Curtatone, good job. Visitor parking, you had brought up something last time you were here, that one of the things you were hearing from a lot of the voters is about the whole new wave of permit parking that swept across the city for the past couple of years. One of the things that came up at the debate was very short, but it was about traffic and parking. Are you hearing anything more from the voters? Are they settling down with traffic and parking issues?
No, I mean it's certain people talk about it. It wasn't a wave of folks talking about it, but it is out there. One of the things that folks have been talking about that I probably would introduce is actually more guest permits.
Guest passes,
so that it would allow for more family members on the weekends, or if there's a party, or or anything really. I mean, for example, someone passes away, the family comes over. You may have 8, 9 cars, and they're getting ticketed. So having enough passes, and these are the things that happen on spur of the moment. It's not things that are planned.
Right.
So having more passes, I think is a very positive thing to do, and certainly one of the things that I've been talking to with folks as I've gone door to door. So That's pretty much where it's at.
Some other basic city services. We got complaints. Are they happy? What are, trash pickup, street sweeping, snow removal?
I think people have been generally content with the way the city is running. I mean, there's always issues and there's always ways of improving. What we have, and that's the job of a ward alderman. Listening to folks, bringing it up to the board, trying to make things better. And that's what I want to do, and that's what I plan on doing if the folks in the voters of Ward 4 decide to elect me as their next ward alderman, because that really is our responsibility, making it better.
Speaking of making it better, the mayor is now fully content with the job that they did at Dilboy Field with taking over management down there. His next, he set his sights now on Foss Park.
Right.
They have a very good, active neighborhood association down there who's lobbying for, kudos to my friend Peter Unger.
Right.
They've been lobbying for years for the city to do just that, take over the management of Foss Park.
Yeah.
Thoughts about it?
Peter and his wife, friends, and we've spoken, about this, and I am very pro taking over Foss Park if the city has that opportunity. There are a lot of things about the park that needs to get done. That I think if the city can make the same commitment that it did to Dilboy to Foss Park, I think it'll be a great park for us. So the soccer playing is that whole grass area is gone. We need to take a look at maybe at a artificial turf
for a soccer field.
For a soccer field, because kids are getting hurt when they play other football and so on. So I mean, there are a lot of things. Keeping it cleaner. The state is not doing a very good job of that. So there are things that we as a city can do to make it better and make it a more viable part of the city than what the state is presently doing. So I would be in favor of it, and I look forward to working with Peter and his wife and the other members of the Foss Park group to make that area a much nicer area than what it is. I mean, they just repaved the streets. They did the sidewalks there. It looks great after a few years of waiting for that as well. So it's on the right direction, and we just want to keep it going and make it better.
And I think you share that opinion with Ward 1 Alderman Bill Roach, who shares part of the responsibility for Foss Park.
Yes.
So two heads are better than one when it comes to that stuff. So another thing that really is not, I don't think, in Ward 4, but you're right on the boundary, is the Gilman Square T-stop and the disposition of the Holman's building. Thoughts about that from Ward 4 residents?
Well, I mean, some folks in that area have talked about it. The building needs to be tended to. There are areas of the building that are falling. It's dangerous. I know that now that the Green Line is being pushed back a little bit, I think maybe we need to start having some conversations as a city about doing the development in the building, keeping some safeguards in place for the Green Line station.
Making sure we don't interfere with the station itself.
Exactly. So that area is left alone. But I can't imagine that we're going to have the Holman's building continue to be the way it is for the next 7 years.
So you say 7, I say 12.
Well, according to the state, it's 7 to 8 years. So I think it would be silly for us to be waiting that long to do something with the building. So I think we can develop it in whatever way we can. I think it would be great to put it in private hands so we have some tax revenue coming into the city, which we desperately need. And we go from there. But I think that's a conversation that I would like to see happen.
Yeah. Business within Ward 4. We're jumping right back to the corridor, the Broadway corridor, where the bulk of the business in Ward 4 is. Healthy, so just barely surviving. Vacancies.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from the business community?
Well, I mean, you don't really have to hear it from the business. You can see it.
Yeah.
It's 2 or 3 businesses are thriving. There's empty stores. People open, people close. Part of it is the economic climate. Part of it is not the right mix of businesses. and those are the things that I talk about, as a business person who came here 27 years ago with a very small company to Medford Street, who then has grown within the city boundaries to now, being down on Alston Street. But, I think what a perfect match, but to have an alderman who is a business person, to come in and do exactly what the ward needs, and that is a marriage between development and business development. So it makes no sense to have developers come into the city and putting up structures, and then we don't have businesses to house those. So, I mean,
And being a resident who owns property kind of gives you that watchdog thing. You're making a move to increase development and increase business, all the while you've got the other eye on how does this affect the residents.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it has to be the right scale. It has to be, the appropriate numbers. It has to be fitting within the neighborhood. So, I know I would be a very good person to have on that job. Just because of my experience, and you can't take that away. You can tweak it however you want, but the fact is, that's what I do for a living, and that's what I would work on. I would love to see from McGrath Way, up to Thurston Street, where generally the commercial portion is, to have this rejuvenation of businesses, and not just pizza stores and hair salons, but it could be law firms, it could be architectural firms. Just because it's a storefront doesn't mean that you're going to have a store. It can be other things, professional services. So I think
we saw that, excuse me for a moment, we saw that right in Mugen Square when we finished up with the revitalization. The business folks across the city were looking at that, and we were fortunate enough to have, I won't mention his name, no free plugs on this show, but a well-known attorney in the city who purchased a building and turned it into suites of offices for attorneys, and that revitalized that whole block.
Right.
So I agree with you.
Yeah. So those are very proactive, progressive things that we can do to make sure that Broadway comes back to life and moves forward with a direction that the neighbors wanted to go in.
And one of the key words that we heard at the debate, that I heard from my vantage point up on the stage, was sustainable businesses. The businesses that come in, if you have a revolving door in a commercial section of the city, sometimes that gives a bad message to other businesses. Why has there been such turnover? Do we have a problem here?
Right.
But let me go back to one more thing that you said, and you talked about pizza shops. Congratulations to Mama Leases.
Oh.
There was a question that was asked at the debate. It was kind of a humorous question that was asked by one of the media panelists, and said, if there was only one pizza shop in the city of Somerville that you could eat at for the rest of your life, what would it be? And Alderman at Large Bruce Desmond answered, Mama Leases. So there you go.
That's right.
A Ward 4 landmark.
It is a landmark, and it's great to have them there and doing well.
Yep. What else are the voters saying that gives you the sense that either we're on the right track, or you're going to be the guy that's going to be able to fulfill what they're asking for in Ward 4? Well,
I think folks, not necessarily just in Ward 4, but in general, I think it's they want to make sure that the city survives this economic downturn. That folks are afraid of services being cut, and so. I think it's general things. In terms of Ward 4, public safety is a concern. Bailey Road has had a rash of break-ins. There's been some things that have happened in the Tennyson, Medford Street area. There was actually a shooting not in Winter Hill not too long ago. These are the things that people are always aware of, and they ask me about it. And you have to take proactive steps with it, whether it be, dealing with the police department or the Nitwood team. I mean, we've got some Section 8 housing that are problem areas that we need to address. So these are the things that are sort of happening, in pockets of the ward. It just seems that every section has a little issue of its own.
And you're not alone. Ward 4 is not alone.
No,
we
no,
have
I
the
think
same issues in Ward 5.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is not, and that's why I said it's not typical of Ward 4, but I'm running for the Ward 4 alderman position, and that's what I'm concerned with. And I live in Winter Hill because I happen to think that it's the best part of the city. Winter Hill is a wonderful place to live.
You want to debate that with me?
I'll debate it with anybody in the city. But it's a wonderful place to live.
Yep.
You've got 10 Hills, which is a little oasis away from everything. You go there, and the tranquility is incredible.
Yep.
Winter Hill, and the accessibility it has to everything is second to none. Beautiful older homes. The neighbors, very traditional, long-time residents that, there's history there, and it's just a wonderful part of the city to live in.
I asked you this question the last time you were on the show, that you got the mayor and 2 aldermen at large living in that 10 Hills section. You sure you don't want to give that over to Bill Roach and let him manage it?
Well, the one thing is, if they want anything done in the ward, they're going to have to come to me.
There you go. There you go. We got about 2 minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity if you want to, talk to the folks at home, or if you want to continue chatting about what you see that you're going to be doing for Ward 4.
Well, ideally, if you would let me have some time, I would certainly want to tell everyone watching, and especially the residents and neighbors in Ward 4, that I have enjoyed tremendously. I've worked very hard over the last 6 months in door knocking and reaching out to many of you. And I would ask for your vote on November 8th. I know that I would be a great alderman for Ward 4, and I would work tirelessly for the ward and for all the neighbors to get Ward 4 up to where it should be and move forward. I know the ward very well. I know the issues. I know a lot of the neighbors. And I think that the contact between the ward alderman and the neighbors and the neighborhoods in the ward would be greatly facilitated by me being your ward alderman, because I just know so many of the folks. And I think that creates a sense of easiness in folks to approach me when there are issues. I think I know that I have our interest in Ward 4 at heart, mainly because I've been there a long time and we're vested. I own property in the ward, and those things make it so that you're going to work very hard to make something better. And that's really all I want to do, is make the ward better for all of us. And I know I'm going to work very hard if elected. So I ask, it's going to be these things are always very tight, these elections. And, I ask for your vote, and I hope that you put your trust in me and allow me the privilege of becoming your Ward 4 alderman on November 8th.
There you go.
Thank you.
Have you done this before? Have you delivered the pitch to ask people for a vote before? Thank you, Tony, very, very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Best wishes for a great campaign.
Thank you.
That's it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Joe Lynch for Greater Somerville. Stay safe and stay informed. Good night.